typically interview users at the extremes. How does that play out then with the fact that the majority of the users are in the middle, so how are their constraints accounted for in the overall?
Yeah, well what you're doing is you're designing to the extremes. When you design to the extremes, the middle benefits. Right? Everybody loves OXO because it's easier to use. But because the constraints were harder, right, you found the constraints here, but everyone benefits. So we find that actually oftentimes with gender, for instance, you know, like women are much more stringent healthcare users, right? I mean, they tend to know more, they tend to care more, they're more worried. If you design to those constraints, everyone benefits, right? And so we see that across all different kinds of industries. You know, that Bank of America card came from some crazy behavior, right? That was like, that's really extreme, and it's like everyone loves that, right? A little bit of savings, whatever. So, I mean, that was just the initial insight. There are many steps to that, to the product, but that's kind of refined.
Just to follow up on that, so is that more about identifying extreme users and then interviewing them, or you interview and then you pick up the extreme ones from this?
Yeah, both, right? I mean, we don't really often use recruiters, right? So if you're doing a focus group, someone will call a recruiter, say, hey, get me 42 people between these two ages and this, you know, demographic and socioeconomic situation. We do almost all internal networks, right? So there's an IDEO all email that goes out like, who knows somebody, blah, blah. And because we have 640 people who are a little bit eccentric themselves, right? Finding the extremes is not that difficult. And these days with Facebook and LinkedIn, it's a little bit more time, but better results. Yeah.
You talk a lot about customer experience, but how about if a hospital comes to you and asks you to redesign the experience for clinicians, for doctors? That would require lots of domain expertise, and how would you do that?
So, can everyone hear the question, by the way? No. Yeah, so in the case of the hospital, doctor, they came to us and said, what's the customer experience? And if we're going to design a customer experience for doctors, that requires a lot of domain expertise. So how do we do that? Well, we involve the doctors in the design process. Right, so again, we're content method. We have a process, a methodology. I'm sorry, we're not content. We're process. We have a methodology to kind of extract. It's not even extract. It's kind of leverage the existing content, right? So we co-create. We design with the doctors, right? The same way that we did with the arthritic people, and the same way we did with the customers. We're always designing, especially services, where someone's going to be. We're not the ones delivering it. We're not handing over a product and that's getting sold. We're the ones that are helping design what you're going to use in the marketplace, in the service itself. Any two more questions?
Yeah, because we are running out of time, but if there are any additional comments, I actually have a question, and if you're gonna, because but this is actually, but this is for them. If you're gonna, I'm trying to transform these guys to at least uncover the value of design thinking and user-centric design, and whether they like it or not, that's a different story. But I'm trying to introduce this, and now imagine that some of them actually get transformed, and they suddenly discover that they love this, and they want to do this the rest of their life.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to those people who want to get a position in a design consultancy firm such as IDEO?
Yeah.
And what would be your what's your suggestion for those who want to do that?
Yeah. Well, so it's not uncommon for a lot of people, myself included, to have a multi-year story with IDEO, right? So. In some ways, mine was 10 years. I was sitting in your seat, right, at business school. I saw some video. I was like, wow, that's a cool, like, I worked there someday. Like, out of my mind, a couple more companies. Oh, what was that company that was, I should hire them to help me out. Okay, so now I know some people. At some point, they started talking to me. It was the middle of 2009. So recession, right, like pipeline frozen, not hiring anybody. And I was like, no problem. I'm not really looking for a job. I was looking for the next interesting thing from my career, right? So in March of April 2012, right? So that's 2.5 years. I mean, granted, there was a period there where they weren't hiring. They called me back in early 11. I was busy with something else. I called them back in mid 11. 9 months later, I was in Singapore, finally interviewing, whatever. So it's not uncommon for that to happen because, well, first of all, I have to say, part of the reason we're looking for a regional talent person is because is that recruiting, the entry onboarding process it doesn't exist, right? It's all networks. It's also because a lot of times we like to try people out first because the culture again is so strong. I mean, literally I could be here and then 2 weeks later I could be halfway across the world with 4 people I haven't met on a project that demands a lot of emotion and so and super intense. It's not data work. It's not analytical work. And so I've never worked anywhere more emotionally demanding, right? Like my days are not necessarily that long, 9-10 hours, not terrible. They're not. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel like a lot of pressure, but I feel like I'm interacting with people all the time, and designers who are mercurial, right, and driven by passion. And so it demands a lot emotionally, and therefore the fit is really important. IDEO had 117,000 applications in the first 9 months of last year for 35 slots, right? Now, of course, 165 of those weren't even, didn't even make sense in the first place because IDEO tends to inspire this I want to work for IDEO thing, right? But it is really, so that's the first thing to know about IDEO specifically, and lots of design firms are not, well, IDEO is a little bit different because they look for these people who are kind of across disciplines, right, who have two. But if I were to think about how to work for a design firm in general, right, I would try and go get some experience. A product manager in a tech firm is probably a good background. I would start to, I wouldn't say stalk IDEO, but like when you're in a place, like, I'll tell you what happens, right? So I leave here, I tell you my email address is teddy@ideo.com. 2 of you will email me, right? And I'll say, cool, like, we don't have any positions at IDEO Singapore right now, but you never know when that will happen. Or maybe there's one in Shanghai, if you want to move up there, great. And then some point later, like, somehow we'll have coffee, or I'll meet you at another talk, whatever, and be like, yeah, I was here at INSEAD. I thought it was awesome. Like, cool, like, maybe you should talk to my friend, right, my colleague, and then they have coffee, and then, like, like I literally met 35 people in IDEO in 4 offices before I joined. Not in interviews. It was just like I'd be in New York and be like, hey Colin, hey Colin, someone in Palo Alto said I should talk to you while I'm in New York. Go to the office, have coffee, cool. And then like it was 9 months from middle of 11 when I left my last job till we spent the first 4 months trying to find a project, right? Because IDEO doesn't hire senior people very well, because the culture is so strong, and so senior people come in, they're like, oh, my last place we did this, and like everyone's like, we don't care. It's kind of astounding, but that's true. So we both wanted to try each other out. Like IDEO doesn't do, it's not very porous. It doesn't do consultants or contractors very well, except for the junior side. So we spent 4 months looking for a project, and we couldn't really find that. And then I was like, okay, well this is kind of in my situation, I wasn't in a hurry, and I knew that I was going to be. I kind of knew it was going to be like this, but then it was trying to find the right role, which for me as an entrepreneur is to build an office. Well, I'm not doing that in the Bay. That's headquarters where all the elephants are, right? So it's just like you just have to think about it that way in a long term. I think you should think about your career in general this way. Personally, I do a lot of career workshops and networking stuff for all my students. And it's always like, especially for MBAs, it's not the first job out of college, out of MBA that's the important one, right? It's the one after that. The one out of here is the one you kind of get, like you get 3 out of the 6 things you want, right? You get a little bit of a raise, maybe in the industry you want, but you're still commuting and working tons of hours, and you're not in a role that you really want, right? The one after that, you get to pick one or 2 more of those. And I think you should think about your career that way. Right? Everyone thinks I'm going to come out of MBA and transform, change industries, and make a ton of money. It's like, not really, and especially not these days, right? So, and I think that's a real fallacy of what we do in business schools, is to kind of create an expectation that we can't really meet, right? And career services, but career services at Kellogg and Berkeley, they're all the same, right? We're going to match you guys up with these jobs. Like, well, yeah, but why don't you create your own job? I mean, you can do that actually if you take a long-term view. Like, I want to do this work, And over 2 years or 3 years, you can build the network that you need to get that job or create your own job. But it will take you 2 or 3 years, right? I have a great artifact I should start putting in my slides. That's a chart of 40 companies in 6 different kind of categories that I started with as a kind of a canvas of what I thought was possible, and I just went and talked to all of them. My mantra was 50 conversations over 6 months. That's a lot, but not really, right? So that's what I would say.
Very good. Time's up. Before we go, let me just give you a little bit of a sign of appreciation for all the time and for the insights and sharing. What does INSEAD mean? What does INSEAD mean? Huh?
Doesn't matter.
Thank you guys. See you guys tomorrow.